Hello guys, Pro here with my full set review of Denizens of Shim'zar. This is really cool, so many new cards to talk about. I'm excited, I hope you guys are excited. Let's just get straight into things. So we're starting off with Lyonar. We have a 0 mana, 1 full battle pet with Provoke, which is really interesting, but people have really underestimated the battle pet keyword. Well, I don't know if they've underestimated, but no one's really rating it very highly. But this is definitely quite overstated for a 0 mana card, including Provoke. It opens up some really cool things like 0 mana into Holy Immolation on turn 4, which is definitely not something we've seen. People don't make play around that. And just good with your Bloodborne spell, like 1 mana, 3/4 with Provoke. Sure, it's a battle pet, but it's still provoking stuff. So it's decent in that regard, but it doesn't do a lot for its card, and card advantage wise it's not very good because it is a 0 mana minion. But definitely a lot of potential here, especially in decks that maybe look to refuel, don't really care about cards, Spelljammer decks. Like, if you don't have to worry about the amount of cards in your hand, this card is like a strictly positive card. So I think this definitely has some potential. I don't know if Lyonar will end up wanting it, because Lyonar can definitely run out of cards, but if some decks are built to support this card, definitely a lot of potential in a 0 mana card that has good stats, because there's really no downside if you can keep your hand full. Fighting Spirit, give all friendly minions +1 health, put a random battle pet into your action bar. So it's worse than obviously drawing a card, but it's a cycle. I'm not really too keen on this card. It's kind of situational. It's not the same as drawing a card, though definitely not terrible, because you still get a positive effect and you draw something which you can replace if it's really bad. It does really need to depend though, because drawing a random battle pet may not be the strongest thing in the world, depending on how the strength of them goes. Okay, on to the next one is Fizz. 2 mana 3/3, basically a healing mystic, except instead of 2/3 stats, it has 3/3 and is a battle pet. I apologize if you hear my chair going off, it's really bad, but we'll try to keep it still for the most part. So 3/3 is very good. It trades really well early game, but it's just so awkward. It's not going to get those trades because your opponent's not going to let them, because it's a battle pet. So it's definitely not bad. May see some play in Zaran, but battle pets, I feel like they just need a little bit more to make up for the lack of control. And as the game goes later on, this gets quite a bit worse. Well, maybe that's not true, because Healing Mystic doesn't end up attacking that often in the late game, so maybe not, but don't have high hopes for this one. Sunwisp, 2/1 opening gambit, draw a card. It's okay on paper, but I don't think Lyonar is a deck that really values cycling, and unless we see some kind of combo Lyonar come out, I can't really see this card being played. Lucent Beam, deal 2 damage to an enemy. If a minion general is healed instead, deal 4 damage. So 2 damage for 2 mana is pretty bad. It's like a worse True Strike, if you can hit face, though I don't know how relevant that will be for the most part. But if it's minion or general was healed this turn, deal 4 damage. So the fact that a general healing is actually quite big, because I'm still not convinced this card is amazing. But something like a turn 4 play, like Healing Mystic yourself or a minion, deal 4 damage, it could be okay. Kill 4 wins Magi or something. That's a decent play, but in the time, I feel like there's already enough payoffs for Zaran, especially with some of the other cards, where when you're healing, you're doing really well. When you can heal minions, you're fine. And I'm not sure putting in a situational removal card that doesn't really hit things at that point in the game. Like, at the time you play this with a heal, you're looking at 4 or 5 mana, and then it starts to get a little bit awkward. Though we can say this, it's definitely true in other card games more than Duelyst, where we don't tend to always be, people will say, oh, you can't play this 6 mana minion because it trades badly against other 6 mana minions. Like, that doesn't really happen in Duels. Like, how often are there 2 6 mana minions on the board at turn 6, So, definitely okay, but don't think it's that great. May see players like a 2 of, maybe it's good enough as a 3 of in Zaran, but I'm not expecting heaps from it. Radiant Dragoon, 3 mana 3/4, so just like Hearthstone in the second, the first expansion I should say, introduced the 3 mana 3/4. So we'll see how it goes in Duels. We haven't really had anything like it before, So seeing how good the stat line is, if the stat line actually turns out to be pretty good, then just a small upside may be necessary for these 3 mana 3/4s. Random any turn, giving a minion 1 health doesn't do a lot, but it's definitely something. Could be okay. Not expecting a ton of play, but it may just be solid enough. Compared to Silverguard Knight, well, I mean, it's probably not fair to compare to Silverguard Knight just because Silverguard Knight's a really, really good card, and you would play this alongside Silverguard Knight, not instead of. So maybe if decks are looking for more 3-drops, that could definitely be a thing. 3-drops definitely, I feel like they have a much higher value now if people are going to be playing Battle Pits, because Battle Pits means you can't ramp into 4 mana going first, so 3-drops become a lot more important. So running extra 3-drops, if there's Lyonar decks out there that want something like a Fizz or other Battle Pets, which do have some potential, then I feel like something like Radiant Dragoon, that really helps to kind of find the cut for the deck. Okay, on to the next road, we have Sunforge Lancer, which is 3 mana 2/4. Whenever a minion or general is healed, give your general the +1 attack. That is a permanent boost, and it's pretty good. It heals off the general as well, which is definitely a lot better than just having to heal off a minion. But it's a permanent attack, so it's just like Varth. Can be dispelled, but I think this card it's pretty decent. It's a payoff card, not a card that enables. And that's really my problem with the Heal and Align archetype. It's not that you don't get paid off for when you heal. That's really good. Sure, you can add more cards that benefit off that, but I feel like we need really more enablers. And it's not even things that heal minions. It's having a damaged minion. We need something like Injured Blade Master from Hearthstone, where it comes into play damage and you can heal. I feel like that kind of card is what Zran may really be looking for. But this card is still very solid, and definitely better than some of the payoff cards for healing that already exist. Sky Burial, destroy a minion that is not nearby any general. It's kind of like Decimate, but a little bit cheaper and only targets 1 minion. Really not a fan of this card. Decimate is very situational as it is. It only costs 1 more mana, and oftentimes when you're decimating, you're not really hitting your own minions anyway. So being able to target it isn't really an advantage. It's just a downside of having a lot of mana cost, and I'm not sure that really makes up for it enough. When you decimate's good, and you will be playing it, you won't be hitting multiple minions. Killing 1 minion, it's not that great. So I'm not expecting this card to see any play. Probably won't even be that great in Gauntlet. Afterblaze is one that I definitely rate a lot higher. So a 3 mana spell, give a friendly minion +2/+4, and if it has Zeal, draw a card. So basically a reverse Killing Edge that works with Zeal instead of Backstab. I definitely think this is a very, very strong card. It goes really well from an Azeroth line on turn 1. It becomes a 4/7 with Celerity. You don't even need to draw a card, or you can play it on a Wingblade Adept on turn 2 after you go first as well. Then you suddenly have a 6/7 that drew a card on turn 3. And if you know anything about Blistering Scorn Amplification, turn 2 5/7s are pretty good, even though you can play that on turn 1 technically. But I think it's definitely a very, very strong card. Trades up really well. Health is arguably a more important stat, especially in decks like Saram and kind of Lyonar in general. Ironcliff Heart. Now, this one is a scary card. Oftentimes games against Lyonar do kind of come down to sometimes you just don't draw an answer to Ironcliff, they drop double Divine Bond. I'm not expecting it to be this as big of an occurrence against Lyonar, but Ironcliff is a card that you absolutely need to answer. And this may be weaker than Ironcliff, just because you kind of give up a minion. Sure, you can get it a turn earlier, but that's only really good if you have Divine Bonds. And you're kind of cheesing some stuff out early game, plus it's going to be 3 mana, so you can't really double Divine Bond them at 5 mana. So it might be a little bit weaker than Ironcliff in my opinion. Lyonar doesn't really have these small minions. Everything they kind of play is really high value, so actually losing the minion is kind of a problem, but it can also attack the turn. So 7 mana, you start to get some combos with Divine Bond. So I think I definitely think it's a really good card, and you play it alongside Ironcliff. You definitely not play it instead of Ironcliff, in my opinion. Celerius, so 6 mana 3/3, which definitely raises some alarm bells. Just playing a 6 mana 3/3 without an absolutely amazing effect is never really going to work. Drawing 2 cards at the end of your turn is definitely a good effect. I'm not sure it's good enough for 6 mana, unless we see the meta slow down quite a lot where these value cards, it's a very high value card, but it's just really doesn't do that much to affect it does nothing to affect the board essentially. But if the meta slows down, or maybe there's some really aggressive liners where maybe they want to use this to refuel, even then, like if you're an aggressive deck and you play a 6 mana 3/3 that doesn't affect the board, you're no longer an aggressive deck. So I'm not expecting heaps from this, but maybe in the future some control liner archetypes might want this. We'll see. Dawn's Eye. Your general gains 6 attack. At the end of your turn, repair all your artifacts to full durability. This one's a hard one to evaluate. It obviously has some synergy with Arclight Regalia. If you play Arclight Regalia on this, it's pretty hard to deal with for nearly every deck. Maybe Songhai can get through that. But when you have an Arclight Regalia and then you live a turn and then you play Dawn's Eye and it lives, it's common but not that common, and 6 mana is quite a lot. I think this card may be a little bit overrated by some people in the community. Definitely has some potential, but sure, you'll have 3 charges at the end of the turn, but it's basically like an Adamantite clause and then with an extra charge, and I'm not sure that's good enough for 6 mana, even though it can get some recurring value. I think Arclight's still a bit better, and it may just potentially be a bit to win more or just come out too late. 6 mana is really quite a lot in Duelyst. Speaking of 6 mana being a lot, here's an 8 mana card. So all the factions got an 8 mana spell, and Lyonar is looking like arguably the strongest, or at least one of the strongest. Sky Phalanx, 3 Silver Guard Knights. I did talk about this in my just review of the first 5 cards or whatever, and I think it's really, really strong. Just getting 3 bodies for 1 card is super high value. Probably a 1 over 2 in my opinion. It's quite a lot of threats. Hardly anything deals with it efficiently, though we did see some more AoE coming out with the rest of Shim'zar. I still think this card will be pretty good. It's very hard to die when you play this card to minions, and even Macanto does nothing against this card. Alright, on to my favourite faction, the Songhai Empire, and we've got some interesting cards here. So, let's have a look. Ace, Battle Pet, 1/2 ranged. So it's like a Heartseeker with 1 extra health, but it's a battle pet, and I'm just not sure 1 extra health is worth being a battle pet. I mean, maybe you play this alongside Heartseeker and you've got a full weird range deck. I'm just not really seeing this card because like battle pet ability is so anti-synergistic with ranged. Like you just move towards the nearest enemy and then attack. You're a 1/2. Like, range does not want to be moving towards the enemies and then attacking. It seems really weird. Maybe it's okay in Gauntlet, but don't have a lot of high hopes for this card. On to the next one, Katara. And this is a 1-drop that I actually do have a lot of hope for. 1 mana 1/3 with Backstab 3. 1 mana 1/3 is pretty decent stats, and going first, it basically trades the same way that 2/3 does for the most part, just because a lot of minions have 3 health in the early game. That may change with Shim'zar. There's a lot more full health 3 drops that may be around, but it still trades decently well, and that Backstab 3 is really, really nice. Expect this to be a staple of Kalios decks. Not sure it's good enough for Reaver. Maybe it is, but maybe like Ancestral Divination. Do they get changed? I actually haven't read the nerves and stuff, so I only know a little bit of it. But yeah, just it's an okay card. I'm not sure it's in Reaver, but I think it's a very good card in Kalios. Shadow Waltz. Lower the cost of all minions with Backstab in your action bar by 1 and give them +1/+1. It's okay. I don't really like these cards that just buff your hand and lower the cost. Like it's like a Kara Blood Bond spell, right? But it costs a card and you lower it by 1, but you really need a full hand to take advantage of it, and Songhai decks typically don't do that. So not expecting a lot from this, and vomiting out a bunch of Backstab minions isn't the best thing in the world, because Backstab minions don't really synergize with each other. They're kind of anti-synergy where they take up the slot that you could attack from. So not expecting that one to see much play, maybe in some all-out Backstab decks, though I don't really expect them to be great. Anyway, on to Crescent Spear. So Crescent Spear is a 1 mana artifact. general gains 1 attack, and spells you cast deal +1 damage. For those of you who see me talk about this card at all, I really love it. I'm excited for it. It seems very, very good. 1 mana, 1 attack out effect is decent in Songhai, even compared to Sunstone Braces in Lyonar, just because Cyclone Mask definitely has some synergy there, plus just general aggression. And then you get spells you cast that deal 1 damage. Is definitely a decent ability. Not the most amazing thing, but maybe this is enough to run Twin Strikes again. It still works with Phoenix Fires, and maybe you run Ghost Lightning depending on the meta. Not a lot to say. I think it's a pretty powerful card. I think that's pretty clear, but not overbearing at all. I'm going to say Zoe is how you say this dude. This guy's actually my YouTube profile picture and Twitter profile picture for a while. Just because I thought it was cool. And it's cool to see him as a card. 2 mana, 2/3. The Dying Wish puts a random Songhai spell into your action bar and costs 1 less. I think this is actually pretty decent. Sure, it's a battle pet and you don't actually have premium stats, but it's still a 2 mana, 2/3. And you draw a card, so it replaces itself. And it costs 1 less. So that's quite a lot. You can get that tempo back quite well. Songhai spells tend to be pretty good. So I think this card is decent. I'm definitely going to be trying it out in Spellhigh, because we definitely lack some good 2-drops. And just more aggressive based Songhais, I think. Could definitely want this card. Crimson Coil. Deal 2 damage to a minion and activates your battle pets. I don't like it. I just deal 2 damage for a minion, 2 mana's kind of bad. Like, maybe if you're an all-out battle pet Songhai deck, but why are you doing that? Why would you play that? Like, you gotta expect your battle pets to die. Just because, like, your opponent has control over them. You can't expect them to do much, and activating them, I don't like this card. Miramel, this is one I'm excited for, though apparently the nearby effect is random. I found that out today, right before I made this video, which if it's true, makes me super disappointed for the card. But it may still be alright, because it gives you some really strong potential OTK combos with like Tusk Wars, or even just inner focuses where you Tusk Bore, couple Saber Spine, like say Tusk Bore, double Saber Spine, 8, and then you Mirror Meld at 16 damage for 6 mana. It's not amazing. I don't expect this to be really good, but it's definitely a fun card. But it has some potential, like say in a deck that's running Killing Edge and Heartseekers or just Reaver. It could be pretty good. But we will see. The fact that it's a random spawn doesn't feel great. Key Behold. 3 mana 3/2 with ranged and a positive opening gambit. That seems pretty good. I'm not sure how this deck will find a fit. 2 health is really not very good on a 3-drop, but it's a 1 mana less Fire Spitter that also has a positive effect. Minion, it's pretty good for tempo. So it's like a temporary sand trap. I think this card is decent. We'll have to see how the removal and how the meta lines up. If there's a lot of, we've seen quite a few already. We've seen 2 damage spells that target minions from anywhere. We'll see how the meta shapes up, and if there's a lot of 2 damage removal around, then obviously this card's not very good. But 3 mana 3/2 with range, it's pretty good with a positive effect. So we'll see how this one goes. I'm curious to see how that will work out. Battle Pando, 3 mana 2/4. When this minion takes damage, deal 1 damage to all enemies. Maybe this is some kind of like control Songhai card. It does work with Death Strike Seal to clear the board, but that's an expensive combo. And if you want to do that on your turn, then you have to use it in a focus. So suddenly it becomes a 3-card combo, where Death Strike Seal, this may not be good on their own. So I think this card has some potential, maybe in like controlling spell high, or if there's a lot of like a swarm around, maybe even Kara decks this is okay against, but don't see a ton of this. Pandemonium is a really interesting one, but I'm also not really keen on this card. Transform all minions into 0/2 Pando that cannot be attacked until the end of turn. So it's like a metamorphosis that doesn't work on your opponent's turn, and it works on your own minions. Like, it's the idea of this card is that you play it and you clear the board with like a Ghost Lightning plus spell damage or Twin Strikes. But I really don't think this card is very good at all. It's so situational to do anything. Like, if you can't clear the Pandos, this card does nearly nothing. And that is not good enough for a 4-mana spell. So, anyway, Onyx Jaguar. Whenever a friendly minion is moved for any reason, give it +1/+1. 5-mana 3/3 is very, very bad stats. But it's quite an instant effect. If the meta kind of slows down or creates situations where, since we've seen a lot of minions, maybe we could have just a lot of minions sticking to the board for a lot longer, a lot more movement, then this could be good because you can get, maybe 2 or 3 buffs coming in, chuck in juxtaposition, it's going to give you buffs, but it needs a lot. I think it needs a lot of support. Could definitely be an okay card. It may be a 5-mana 3/3, but it's no old land fox, I don't think, but it's still a decent card. Grandmaster Zendo. This one is really hard to evaluate. 6-mana 4/6. The enemy general moves and attacks as if they are a battle pet. That's a really weird one, but I'm just not keen on it, unfortunately, because I opened up 3 of them really fast, and it's a little disappointing because, like, Songhai wants your opponent to be far away from you, right? And this card just brings the general to you most of the time, unless you can put it in the corner on the opposite side, so you have to teleport it to make it work. A 6-mana card, no instant ability, you have to teleport, and then like it has to be close enough that they keep coming towards it, that they can't just ignore it. I'm just not keen on this card at all, and it really sucks. I really want this card to be good, but well, I mean, if like there's stalemates and you have a good board, maybe if you're playing stuff like Shakri, backstab minions, it's okay. But just, and I really need to be convinced on quite a few of these cards that there's going to be minions sticking to the board for long periods of time, multiple minions sticking to the board for long periods of time. That's when these kind of effects we've seen are getting good. But in Duelyst, that's just not the way Duelyst has been for a very long time. So I really need to see the game kind of change fundamentally. Or at least the meta change drastically before this kind of card could really be too good. Cone of Horns. This is a weird one. This is a weird one for sure. I'm not sure how good it is, but transfer all minions in your action bar into your deck into 0-cost Gore Horns. Draw 3 cards. So it's basically an 8-mana. It's like a Skyfall Lennox, where you play 3 Gore Horns instead of 3 Silverguard Knights. Obviously a decent amount worse, a lot easier to deal with, and then you're just drawing 3/3s for the end of the game. And once you're at 9 mana, the mana cost of your spells stops to really matter that much, so you've become a very, very predictable deck. You're just going to be playing Gore Horns for the rest of the game, plus spells. Maybe it's okay, but nothing to write home about. I don't think 8 mana play 3 Gore Horns is a very good turn. Well, actually, you can play more than 3 Gore Horns potentially, but I'm still not a big fan of this card. Could be okay though. Can't say that like lets you just spew out a bunch of minions in one card can always be okay. Ray. Battle Pet 1/1 Dying Wish, dispel the nearest enemy minion. 1/1 stats is nothing. It's just not a card, essentially. And then Dying Wish, dispel the nearest enemy minion. You'd really be pushing it to get me to consider this card anything just straight garbage. Maybe if you play like Scorn, but then why do you need so much dispel? Nah, this card's bad. It's just bad. Like, you're unlikely to even dispel the thing you want because they control it. Like, they control exactly when it dispels because it's a battle pet as well. If this wasn't a battle pet, I think it would still be really bad. Maybe not that bad if it wasn't a battle pet, but still. I guess it balances out the draw random battle pet cards. Anyway, we're not going to talk about that one for too long. Alright, on to Pax 8. 2 mana 2/1. Summon 2/2 Iron Dervishes nearby. Seems like it could be okay in a Dervish-based deck. It doesn't really matter that it dies, and it's built to die. So cards that are built to die are good on battle pets because your eyes are gonna die. That's what battle pets do. They live and they die very, very quickly. Is 2/2 Iron Dervishes worth it? Probably in a deck that actually has synergy with Dervishes. Otherwise, it's still not bad. Getting 3 bodies off 1 card, even if they're not very good bodies, is definitely something good for only 2 mana. So, expect this card to see a bit of play. I don't think it's amazing, but in a Dervish deck especially, it's a very good card. Windsizer. Now, this one definitely seems really good to me. It's a 2 mana 2/3. Lower the cost of all structure minions in your action bar by 1. It's a 2/3 with a straight upside, not something we've really seen in Duelyst, much other than a couple of neutral minions, which even then the upside wasn't that great, especially on turn 1. Whereas this can get you some really explosive starts. You can play this and then Fireblaze Obelisk going second turn 1, sorry. And that's really, really strong. So definitely some potential with this card. It's just really pushing the structure archetype. I can't see any reason this would not be played in a structure-based deck, and any reason it will be played in another deck. So it's one of those cards in the archetype it fits in. It's probably going to be an auto include. Summon a wind, 2 mana. Summon a wind dervish nearby each friendly obelisk. Draw a card. So if you have 1 obelisk out, it's a Rashar's. It's kind of like a bad Rashar's Curse that draws a card. Pretty good. If you have none, it's a lot worse than an obelisk. It's just unplayable. Well, I don't know if you probably can draw a card. It's 2 mana cycle, which is pretty terrible. And if you have more than 2, it's really good. I still think we're in this. I might still be in this mindset of pre-Shim'zar, where minions just don't stick, and we can kind of expect multiple obelisks to live, but it seems a little bit win more to me. The fact that it has cycle is really big, so maybe we'll see play. You can argue it's better than Rashar's, even with 1 obelisk at times because of the draw card. Hard to evaluate, but definitely nothing stellar. I may see some play if there's not much to spell in the meta and obelisks are actually sticking, and it's more about making them effective. Felchus. Really like the art for this card. Not that that really means much. 3 mana 3/3. Opening gambit, your general gains 2 attack and takes no damage this turn. So just for a normal general, it's going to be, your general gets hit for 4, which is definitely okay, and you take no damage. So Sarge can actually play this, and Bloodborne spell, you can kill up to 8 damage health minion and take no damage doing so, which is definitely pretty strong. So I expect there's be some play in Sarge decks, depending on the meta. Like saying, okay, if there's lots of Nimbs in the meta example, like this is a card that's good against, but then if there's a lot of small minions, it's okay. But I think it's an okay card. 3 mana 3/3 is definitely not great though, and I'm expecting it to get kind of worse now that Shim'zar is out. It's definitely an alright card. I think it's pretty good in Gauntlet though. 3 Astral Flood. Put 3 random battle pets into your action bar. So it's a 3 mana, draw 3. But it draws 3 kind of bad cards almost, because they're battle pets. Well, I think it's still decent, like kind of a refuel for an aggro deck. Aggro decks can afford to be playing battle pets a little bit more than you. But would you rather not try a Spelljammer? You probably would. It is a lot of value in 1 card, and battle pets often generate their own value. So maybe just decks just want this, so they don't have to run about card draw value. And you just play this, you play some battle pets. Sure, they don't compete very well, but they get you get more value from playing the battle pets, and in a long game this card actually is pretty good. So maybe it has some potential, but nothing amazing. Psychic Conduit. Take control of an enemy minion with 2 or less attack until end of turn for 3 mana. It's like I'm not a fan of this card at all. It's like a Shadow Madness and Hearthstone, but only 2 attack minions. So the idea is that you take a 2 attack minion, you trade it into something else. You can even Zenrui. So you can Blind Scorch and then do it and trade in. But to really trade with anything, with Blind Scorch you can't even trade properly. Like, this card's bad. I think this card's really bad. I'd rather play Zenrui and keep it forever. Even if it's 2 mana less, you get a body. just don't think this card is any good. Like, even stealing a land fox is not that amazing. And that's the best target. Yeah, it's pretty bad. Alright, Elemancer. 4 mana, 4/3, with a Dying Wish, summon a random obelisk in this space. On this space. That's actually pretty strong. 4 mana, 4/3 is not great, but it leaves something behind that's normally going to have 6 health. And it's a lot to get through without Dispel. If there's a lot of Dispel in the meta, obviously this is weak, but if you're playing an Obelisk Vetruvian, you're expecting to be weak to Dispel, and having one more threat that isn't necessarily a bad thing. I think this card's very good. Has some Dying Wish synergy as well, which is actually relevant. Nimbus, I don't know what Soulburn Obelisk does. And I don't want to make any claims because I don't know what the card does. But if it's good, it's good. 3/8 that takes damage, like, that's pretty good. So if it's anything decent, it'll probably be pretty good, but we will see how it goes. Corpse Combustion, 5 mana, summon all friendly minions with Dying Wish, destroy since your last turn on random spaces. Not expecting this to be too good. Nether Summoning is a card that does something similar. While less potential payoff if you have heaps of minions die, it's not going to be very often that you have a bunch of Dying Wish minions dying. I just don't think this is very good. It's just way too situational. Spine Cleaver, once again, I don't know what Blood Fire Totem does, but gaining 1 attack on an artifact for 5 mana and then needing to kill minions with your general does not seem like a winning combination to me. I think Blood Fire Totem needs to be really, really strong for that to warrant me playing it. Pantheron costs 0 if you cast all 3 Science Wish spells this game. 6 mana, 6/6. It's pretty bad if you have to hard cast it. If you're playing, 3 of each spell though, probably you chuck this in the deck. Though I'm just not sure it's overly strong. If you are playing 3 of all, you probably want to play this card though, because it is a really nice tempo swing. Though I'm not sure if that's many decks. Circle of Desiccation is an 8 mana spell. Destroy all non-structure minions. If we get a more mid-range mana, which Shim'zar kind of works towards it a little bit, then this is definitely decent. It's a one-sided board wipe in Vetruvian, basically unconditionally. But 8 mana for a board wipe comes very, very slow. It's definitely not very good against aggro. So if we see some greedier mid-range decks, this could definitely have a lot of potential. But if the meta stays as aggressive as it has been, then I'm not expecting much from this. Alright, on to Abyssian. I was thinking about cutting this into 2 parts, but I've got some stuff to do and I want to stream as soon as I get home, so we'll get it all done in one go. I apologize if the video does get a bit long, but there are a ton of cards to evaluate here. Alright, Sphere of Darkness, 1 mana, turn a space into Shadow Creep and draw a card. It's a 1 mana cycle that deals 1 damage. It draws a card, 1 mana, deal 1 damage. That's awesome, and it has Shadow Creep synergy. 3 of in any Shadow Creep deck, and actually makes this in play in some non-Shadow Creep decks. 1 mana cycle is very, very good, though less so in Duelyst, because we only have like late games and combo pieces, but still a pretty decent card. 2 mana, 1/1 Gore. It is a battle pet, which you have to look at it quite harshly with battle pets. Dying Wish, summon a copy of this minion in random unoccupied corner. So it's like a 2 mana Sarlacc that goes to the corner every time, so the worst possible spawn. And it can't be controlled where it moves. I'm not high on this card. Is that really worth playing over Sarlacc? Maybe. If you're greedy about effects that, like, if you're playing like Darkfire Sacrifices, Ritual Banishings, like you drop one of these on turn 1 and you just forget about ever needing a trigger for those effects. But it's kind of bad on, it's really bad on its own. Really bad. Yeah, not too keen on this card. It could be okay though. 2 mana Sarlacc has potential, but it's definitely not just straight up 2 mana Sarlacc. 2 mana 3/3 Ooze Battle Pet. Whenever this minion takes damage, turn a space occupied by an enemy into Shadow Creep. That's pretty good. You can't play around the effect, so it's like 2 mana 3/3. Each time takes damage, deal 1 damage to a random enemy, plus you get Shadow Creep synergy. Actually, I think this card's pretty good. Like, it's not amazing because it's a battle pet, but 3 mana, like, there's not a lot of things that trade cleanly into that. If you play Callous Elemental, like turn 1, after they play this, like, you still have a 50-50 chance of killing it. I think this card is actually pretty decent. And if you get multiple procs, it's obviously insane. But Shadow Creep deck wants this. Not sure any other decks want this, just because it's probably not enough. But it seems alright. Alright. Lurking Fear. Lower the cost of all minions in Dying Wish in your action bar and deck by 1. This is a hard one to evaluate, but in heavy Dying Wish themed deck, this can get you a lot of mana. You need to hit 2 targets to break even on the mana, but you probably want to be hitting at least 3 or 4 within the game, maybe even more to make up for the fact that you're using a card. But in a very Dying Wish themed deck, this is really good. And in other decks, it's really, really useless. So if there's a deck that wants a ton of Dying Wish minions, this is good, but I feel like you need well over 10. Maybe that's a little bit too harsh, but I could definitely see you wanting over 10 with this card. Next one, Inkhorn Gaze. 2 mana, deal 2 damage to a minion. If it dies this turn, put a random battle pet in your action bar. So another card spell that deals 2 damage to a minion. And if these cards actually start to see play, definitely puts a real concern over 2 damage, 2 health minions, which was already kind of a big thing with the general, but definitely something to keep in mind at least. Also hurts 4 health minions. But if it dies, put a random battle pet in your action bar. It's okay. Yeah, I'm not sold on this card. It's very okay. I don't think you'll see constructed play, at least for the most part. Next one, Echoing Shriek. 2 mana, transform all minions that cost 2 or less into 1/1 Wraithlings. It's an interesting card. It's really good against Kara, because they can buff it up, but it still costs 2 or less. And I think that's the real big one there. If you run like a control deck with like this plus Scorn, you're doing alright. But I don't know if that really works with Abyssian. Like, you're playing Scorn and Abyssian, so it kind of has to be a creep deck at that point. But it's good against in a really massive Kara meta. Even then, it really needs to be a ton of Kara for this card to be good, because it's kind of bad against most decks. Alright, next one. Blood Baronet. 3 mana, 3/3. Opening Gambit, double a nearby Wraithling's attack and health. We didn't see anything else to buff Wraithlings. We just have the existing Wraithling Fury, plus any other buffs you have. Something like Deathfire Crescendo, where you can make it kind of big and then double it, which is really good, but it seems quite win more. When you have a big Wraithling going with Deathfire Crescendo, you're probably in a really good spot anyway. And I think adding 3 mana to that combo makes it a lot less consistent. I don't think this card's very good. And obviously, when you don't have any buffs, you're basically just playing a Songweaver. 3 mana, 3/3 that gives +1 to a nearby minion. It's pretty similar to that, so I don't think this is great. Yeah, not expecting to see this not much play. Maybe if we see some more cards that buff Wraithlings in the future, this has a home, but for now, I'm not sold on it at all. Next one, 3 mana, Void Steel. Give an enemy minion -3 attack, and nearby friendly minions gain +3 attack. Yeah. It's pretty good I guess it's okay in Swarm. Like, you can trade into something for free. Like, if you have like 3 minions, right, and like 3 1/1s, and your opponent plays Primal Shieldmaster, you Void Steel, like you kill 2 minions and you have 3 attack. It's still not great though. I'm not sold on this card. And as a finisher, it's reliant on your opponent having a minion. Yeah. Could be okay, but not expecting heaps from it. Ghost Azalea. Your general gains +1 attack for each friendly Shadow Creep. This is going to really depend on how easily Shadow Creep is generated. But it definitely has a lot of potential. Like, it can be a finisher. it's essentially when you're just doing an obliterate damage, it works the same amount of damage to the general. So as a finisher, it works the same, and it gives you an artifact. But you're not always going to be in a position to attack with your general in a creep deck. Definitely a decent card. I expect that maybe as a 1 or a 2 of in a creep deck. But it will depend on how reliably creep decks are generating creep in the early turns. If you can curve into this, we'll see. It's a hard one to evaluate for sure. Night Fiend, deal 2 damage to each enemy on or near friendly shadow creep. This is a hard one to evaluate as well. If you have a lot of shadow creep, this kind of hits everything, but you're only hitting 2 damage to everything, which isn't amazing. It's like a one-sided Tempest at best. But on a 3/3 body, probably not great. Maybe you run it in the more aggro metas, or swarm metas, maybe Kara metas as well. But not amazing. I don't think it's one of the real payoff cards. Next one is Klaxon, 6 mana 6/6 with Provoke, which is an okay stat line. And Dying Wish turns 6 random spaces into Shadow Creep. Now, when I first saw this card, I wasn't really too keen on it. And that's because I made the connection to Vaporeaver. And Vaporeaver, it's a card that's, like, in theory, it's pushed quite hard. A 6 mana 6/6 with Celerity, and it has a really good Dying Wish. Oh, sorry, excuse me. But even that doesn't see that much play. And but this has Provoke, which is pretty big, because you don't care as long as it dies legitimately, and you don't die. Then it sets up a really nice Obliterate. It does miss a turn of curving out with Obliterate, which is a little bit problematic. But I think it's still a decent card, and probably we'll see some play in Shadow Creep decks. A lot of these Shadow Creep cards are pretty good, but it's like, is the deck good? And that will really determine if they see play or not. Arcane Devourer, let me just get the webcam out of the way. The next minion you summon this turn costs 1, so 7 mana 8/4. So when you play something like a Spectral Revenant at 8 mana, this is basically a 1 mana 8/4, which is okay, but you need to get to 8 mana to basically get a 1 mana 8/4, and the rest of the time it's a 7 mana 8/4, which is absolutely terrible. This card is decent. I'm definitely going to be trying it out in ramp Abyssian strategies, but like the payoff is not that good for how bad this card is the rest of the time. And 4 health is really not a lot, so I'm not expecting huge things from this card. But definitely it has some potential. Like if you Darkfire, sacrifice it out on 6 mana, then you get to play a 7-drop. And this, I feel like maybe with Darkfire, I might be underestimating this card with Darkfire Sacrifice, but how do you even play an 8/4? Like you just play it kind of safe, but then it gets out of range, or you just play it in range and it dies quite easily. We'll see. It definitely has a lot of potential, this card, especially when you Darkfire Sacrifice it out. But you know, Darkfire sacrificing out makes a lot of things good. So it's hard to evaluate that way. Obliterate. This is a very, very strong card for the Shadow Creep decks. Basically, this is the payoff card. If you have a good amount of creep, you get to turn 8, you clear the board, you deal a ton of damage to them. And it's a lot better than a turn 7 Shadow Nova was. The first Shadow Nova was often a tempo loss. Here, you're not really generating any value, but you're starting to deal damage and you're clearing their board. I think this is probably going to be a 3 of it all Shadow Creep decks. Costs 1 more than Shadow Nova, which is actually a really massive deal. Maybe you just want 2, but it seems like the payoff card, and we may see Cassivas just focus even more on getting to late game. Alright guys, thank you for sticking by. We're 44 minutes in. I know this is long. I am tired. You guys might be tired. This is a long review, but there's a lot of cards to get through. We gotta do it. Maybe we'll try and speed things up a little bit. Alright, Rex, 1 mana 3/1 Battle Pet. It's quite exploitable, hard to play early turns because it just suicide itself and then they deal with the egg, but it works really well with the egg synergy. Just needing minions that produce eggs is quite good because there's so many egg cards in the thing. So in the decks that try to abuse that synergy, this is obviously pretty decent, and maybe a necessary evil. Razor Skin, give all friendly minions +1 attack, put a random battle pet in your action bar. Not really too sold on these cards that give you a random battle pet, but it actually does kind of give you quite a decent amount of ability for 1 mana. Giving all friendly minions plus 1 attack, that's a decent, few bits of damage, make some better trades, and you get a card to replace it, which can often generate you immediate value, so not a bad later in the game as well. This may actually see some play, but it's not the ones that give you battle pets. I'm not overly sold on just quite yet. Lava Lance, deal 2 damage to a minion. If you have an egg, deal 4 damage instead. Now, there's a lot of these egg cards. Can you tell I'm a little bit tired? So there's a lot of these egg cards, and they're all pretty good when you have eggs. And they're all not very good when you don't have eggs. So it really does depend how reliably can you have an egg. And I'm not sold on this egg archetype. The fact that the developers would release so many egg synergy cards kind of tells me that there's definitely some potential there in the release that eggs can hatch, and there'll be ways to get eggs. But we only saw, I believe, 1 new rebirth minion that gives eggs, and we have Chrysalis Burst and then the rebirth minions. I'm just not sure that's enough. But obviously this card is very good if you have eggs. And range removal is really, really massive. Like 4 Winds Magi, now you can deal with it. That's massive. That's so massive, and they struggle so much from range. So if they can have a 1 mana deal 4 damage from range, that is really, really huge. Range remove, like even deal 2 damage, that works with Egg Morph. From a distance, sure you 2 for 1 yourself, but a lot of times lose the game or do that, and now you have that option. So definitely has some potential. Yeah, Grow is an interesting one. It gets a lot of stats. If it gets to attack once, it's a 2 mana 3/5, which is very, very good. The problem with this is a terrible turn 1 play, as like most battle pets are. Where your opponent would just play their general and a minion, and then it comes in, suicides itself, and doesn't kill their 2-drop. That's definitely a real downside of the card. But battle pets are very, very easy to look bad when you consider them as turn 1 plays. A lot of them. I feel like going second this card's a lot better though. Maybe not, but you can play it a little bit more safe potentially, and it can still be in range to kind of do things in the future, and you're not relying on it for acceleration and to survive. It has some potential, like the ability to get a 2 mana 3/5 is pretty good, but the battle tagline is just so scary. I think I could see some play, definitely, but definitely not very good on turn 1. Milwaukee Huntress, grow 1/2. Grow at the start of both players' turns, so it's essentially a 3 mana 2/3. The first turn your opponent can interact with it, which is not great. But if you're running a grow deck, this gets a lot better because it helps everything you have grow. So that's essentially a bit win more. It's not very often your grow minions actually live a turn, unless you're playing Gauntlet. So I'm not expecting a lot from this card, but it could be okay in a grow deck. I don't know if a grow deck will ever be a thing, but that's the problem. Give a minion +5 attack at the end of turn, transform into a 3/3 kin. So it's like a shadow reflection that basically changes the minion to a 3/3 at all. So if you want to use it on your opponent's spells, it's a 3 mana Aspect of the Fox, which is not very good. You have Fast Bloodborne spell, which makes this a little bit better, but it's kind of better on your own minions. Shadow Reflection in Mag is probably a really good card, because there are definitely some aggressive Magmars out there. Transferring into a 3/3, some of the time it's better, some of the time it's worse. But it might not matter. Maybe even if it's worse, you might still want to play it in aggressive Magmars. And oftentimes, if you Shadow Reflection something, it will have like 1 or 2 health. Whereas having the extra health kind of matters a bit, but the payoff if it lives or they can't deal with it very easily is obviously a lot worse. I think this card is decent. It will probably see some play in aggro mag, or like maybe Battle Pit mag, but then you also lose effects, so that's a bit of a downside. But just as it's versatile, it's an aggressive card that can double as removal, delayed removal, obviously to the end of your turn, so provokes, it doesn't work very well against, but it's an okay card. 4 mana Wild Inceptor, 4 mana 3/3, which is pretty bad. Opening out and hatch a friendly egg. once again, like, even this one is not that great. Unless you really need to have eggs consistently. Because if you're playing a 4-mana 3/3, otherwise, that's really, really bad. But the egg minion will have rush, essentially. So that's pretty good if you can get it off. But if you can't get it off, it's pretty bad. And eggs hatch at the start of your turn, so you're going to have to get that egg during your turn. So it means your opponent let you have a rebirth minion to live, and then also be in a position to kill off, which I don't think is going to happen very often. So don't really like that. And Crystal's Burst comes out pretty late, so that's an 8-mana combo there, which is okay, but even then, yeah, I'm not sold. So I don't think that card's very good. 5 mana, 6/3, Visionaire. Whenever any player draws a card, this minion gains +1/+1. So you're normally going to be playing this. It's essentially going to be a 5 mana 7/4 when your opponent plays it. At the very worst, when they can first interact with it, because you draw a card at the end of your turn. This is definitely a Starhorn card for sure, because you can play it 6 mana. You get an 8/5. It's no Black Solace for sure. Black Solace did this a lot better, but Black Solace was one of the most insane cards in the game for a while. I feel like it just has a little bit too much attack and too low health. Well, not too much attack, but just the stats aren't really distributed in a great way. It's quite easy to kill off, but maybe it's okay in a Starhorn deck about making your opponents draw cards. Yeah, we'll see. On to the next one, which I think is actually quite a bit better than that card. Nature's Confluence. Summon 4 copies of a random battle pet in a 2/2 area. Now, we've kind of been trashing on battle pets a little bit. The general consensus of most communities is that battle pets are probably going to be pretty bad. But getting 4 of them, you pay 5 mana and you get 4 minions on the board, and they all have like additional effects when they die, or they get a bunch of stats. Like, that's a very hard card to deal with. I think this card is actually quite good. It obviously have to see. We don't know the range of battle pets. We haven't really analysed it or anything, but I think this card definitely has some potential, especially if you can ramp into it. That's really, really hard to deal with. Comes out before a decent amount of AoE, and then you can refill your hand. So it's quite. Maybe this is like a top end in an aggressive deck where you just kind of curve out really aggressively in the early game, and then you play this on 5, and then you get some refuel with the battle pet effects. You're ahead on the board, so your battle pets are definitely not as bad. Also, 5 mana Morin Kerr artifact that gains you 3 attack, and whenever your generals deals damage, hatch all friendly eggs. I hate these 4 and 5 mana cards that synergize with eggs. Like, where are you getting these eggs from? Someone tell me this. Where, like, I don't know. Maybe I'm being really negative about these egg effects, but I just don't get it. Where are all these eggs coming from? Where are they all? Like, it's 5 mana. Am I missing something here? Like, I don't get it. Where are you getting the egg from? Like, Crystal's Burst is 4 mana, that's 9 mana. Or you have to rely on one of your rebirth minions living a turn, and not just living a turn, you have to be able to kill them off. I just don't get it. I don't get it. I don't mind Magmar. I was really hoping for some really cool tools to control Magmar. It's a deck I really like, but I don't know, man. I don't know. Why would I just play Adamantine Claws? How often are you... Like, this is a really nice 9 mana combo with Crystal's Burst, but there's a lot of good 9 mana things you can do. Where are you getting these eggs from? Like, I don't know, guys. I could be wrong. Maybe Magmar turns out to be really good, but I'm not seeing it at all. Like, you got Rex. Is it even good for Magmar? That's never going to live. It'll suicide itself and they have a whole turn to deal with the 0/1 egg. I don't get it. I don't get it, guys. I don't get it. I don't know. Alright, I'm moving on. I'm triggered. And now we have a... we get the Dreadnought. That's another rebirth minion, right? And it makes your eggs stickier. But they hatch before you can get these effects a lot of the time. because you summon them and then they don't hatch. I just don't see it. Why am I playing another minion that only works with egg minions? I need stuff to make me reliably have an egg. Oh, guys. I really hope that people prove me wrong. Egg Magmar seems like a really cool archetype, but where am I getting eggs from? Anyway, on to the next one. Before we get too hung up on the eggs, let's evaluate another card that uses eggs. 8 mana, Flaming Stampede, deal 5 damage to all non-egg minions and generals. Why? 5 damage to everything for 8 mana is not very good. Maybe egg minions mean rebirth minions, but it says egg minions, right? That definitely means just eggs. I have to think that. And then they hatch at the end of your turn, so like your opponent just spends the whole next turn. You basically so let's say clear the board apart from a bunch of eggs. Eggs hatch at the start of your turn now. So they spend their whole turn. They have maybe 8 or 9 mana. Develop the board however they want, and clear off the eggs. And then the rebirth minions you have, well, now they're also there with the eggs, and your opponent has a whole turn to clear them. I don't see it, guys. I just don't see it. Maybe I'm missing something. I really feel like I'm missing something here. Maybe there's some change in the patch notes I missed. Anyway, 12 mana, Mandrake, 6/6, costs 1 less for any minion summoned from your player's action bar this game. This is one of those cards that you need to play with. It has some potential. People play a lot of minions, especially in something like Kara. Against Kara, this could be good, but kind of sucks in your opening hand. Late game, it can be very good. I think this card actually has a decent amount of potential. In the late game, though, could be a nice way to swing tempo, though. If you are playing these board clears like Flying Stampede, you clear the board, play a bunch of 0 mana Mandrakes, but that's very late game speaking, and well, pre-Shim'zar, games definitely didn't go long enough to play stuff like this. And maybe it will change, but if it doesn't, I don't know, it might just be a little bit too greedy. Alright. On to Vanar. We're nearly getting there, guys. Oh, it's been an hour already. If anyone has actually made it this far into the video and I haven't just been talking to myself, thank you very much for watching. It's a long review. There's a lot of cards to get through. Alright, with Spirit Call, put a random Vesper minion into your action bar. It costs 1 less and has a +1/+1. So, tempo-wise, if we assume a random minion is the same as a minion, you're not losing any tempo because it costs 1 less, and you get the free +1/+1. But you're using a card. So you're basically spending 1 mana. In a vacuum, it's kind of bad, because you're basically using a whole card to give a minion +1/+1, and it's a random minion that you can't control which one gets even the +1/+1. Though the upside of the card is that it can potentially let you ramp out things earlier, because sure, you spend that 1 mana now, but you have to spend that one. You don't get that benefit on that turn. You can get it on another turn and ramp into something that otherwise would be impossible to ramp into. Is there enough big Vesper minions that I can consistently do that? I'm not too sure, but this card is okay. But the fact it takes up a card and doesn't really give you any value is kind of a problem, because tempo-wise is not that great. Alright, next one. Icy, the Battle Pet, 2 mana, 2/3, so normally good stats, but bad stats for a Battle Pet for sure. Opening gamut, stun an enemy minion or general. That's a very nice tempo card. I actually think this could be pretty good in Kara. I'm definitely going to try this out in Kara. You some really, really nice tempo. You just deal with a minion for 1 turn. It gets to big enough stats with Kara that, if it's a 4/5, this is really, really good. You don't care about it being a Battle Pet too much. definitely a decent card. I'm going to try it out in Kara for sure. Burr, a 2 mana 3/3. When it survives damage, transform it into a different battle pet. So, in theory, if you're just versing in general, this card gets like infinite value because it's like attack, switch, and a lot of the most battle pets have over 3 damage, 3 health. But it's okay. It's one of the better early game ones for sure, because it's like your opponent needs to have a 3 attack minion. So if there's a lot of 3 attack minions running around at 3 mana cost, which you've definitely seen a lot more putting, we've seen some 3/4s come in, then this is bad, right? Because it just dies for free. It does nothing. But if there's a lot of 2, like currently we've seen like Spelljam is one of the most common turn 1 plays click first, or Landfox, which is a little bit iffy, but still better than nothing. Then it gets a bit better because it survives damage. Basically, it took the trade for free. So that has some potential. On to the next one. Lightning Blitz. Give all friendly minions +1/+1. Randomly teleport them to your opponent's starting side of the battlefield. So obviously this has a lot of synergy with something like Spirit of the Wild. Giving all your minions +1/+1 has potential, but I'm just not sure it's really good enough. Like a lot of these cards that we've seen released, they kind of work with like the board stalls that happen in like Silver and Bronze, where like both players have like a bunch of minions on their side of the field, and like the game's still out because not everyone has good removal, and like no one wants to come close to each other because then all the good trades happen, and then bam, Lightning Blitz, and you Spirit of the Wild and kill them all. But like that's not gonna happen at the high level. Minions just don't live this long. Like, okay, so what Vanar deck has a bunch of minions? Because that's when it's okay, right? That's when it's good, is when you just have a bunch of minions and you're taking, it's like a War Surge, and then, so it's like a War Surge, and then you need that other clause where you randomly teleport to your opponent's side of the board to actually be good, because War Surge is not a good card. It's okay, it's probably better than in Vanar than in Lyonar, but even then it's still not great. So what Vanar deck wants to play a bunch of minions? Well, there's Fae, which has walls, but if you're teleporting walls into random spots, probably not going to be able to hit anything. So that's kind of a downside there. And then you look at Kara, where sure they often actually do play quite a lot of minions, but that's a pretty good situation already. And then you're playing more spells in Kara. Like we've already seen spells slowly get cut over time in Kara. I've been down to like 4 or 5 spells at some points, just because you want to buff as many minions as you can with that Bloodborne spell. So like sure you can give +1 to a couple of minions, but you know, what if this was just another minion and it got 2 buffs on it as well? And then you have to rely on having a bunch of minions, which is a good spot. It's a lot better on its own. Don't think this card is great, but obviously it does some cool stuff with Spirit of the Wild. Maybe it can be a fun deck. Maybe it has some potential. But I'm not convinced. Alright, next one. Altered Beast. Transform any minion into a random battle pet. So it's very similar to Aspect of the Fox. It's around about those stats that a battle pet gets. So it can work as a removal. But it's probably worse to have a battle pet than a 3/3. Maybe not. Though I'd definitely be worried about, like when you get to the point where spending 2 mana removal on big things is the battle pets, their effects can give you a decent amount of value. I feel like Aspect of the Fox is probably just a little bit better of a card. It really does depend though how the evaluation goes. Are battle pets better than a 3/3? Or would you rather just have something? And I'm not quite convinced, because a lot of time we play just 2 mana 2/3s, just because they're 2 mana 2/3s, and a 3/3 is obviously better than that. And so saying like a random battle pet is better than a 3/3 is kind of a hard claim when we're not really rating most battle pets too hard. So I'm not a big fan of this card, just because, like, sure, it's maybe a little bit worse than the Fox, but you're playing an extra mana. I think Aspect of the Fox is just a little bit better, just for consistency's sake. Alright, on to the next one. 3 mana, Snow Rippler, 3/4, Infiltrate. Whenever this minion damages a general, put a random battle pet into your action bar. It's okay. I talked about earlier in this video, which was like an eternity ago, that 3 mana 3/4. It's not a stat line we've seen experimented with before, and it really does depend. How good is this stat line? How good is that extra attack from a 2/4? Do you need a really good effect? This is a Vesper, which is definitely relevant. So Vesper decks probably want this card. And it's not the hardest effect to get. It really does depend though. Like, I think we really need to see how the meta develops and if 3/4 is good enough. Because if 3/4 is a decent stat line, you don't really need much of an effect. And this is a decent effect, being a Vesper, having a decent infiltrate that can get you card advantage. That's not a bad effect, but I don't think this thing is getting a lot of value a lot of the time. So we'll really have to see how the 3/4 goes. I'm not going to make too many bold claims about this card just because I really want to wait and see how the 3/4 stat line for 3 mana actually plays out, because that has a massive effect on how we evaluate this card. Alright, last few ones of Vanar. 3 mana Iceblade Dryad, a card that was in the game as a 4 mana 5/5 Vesper that eventually got removed, is now back in the game with a completely different effect and stats and mana. So 3 mana 3/3, opening gambit, give a friendly Vesper minion +1/+1 and flying. Interesting one, this one. It's okay. It works quite well with infiltrate. We've seen the Vespers we play actually work really well with infiltrate. And flying basically guarantees you get infiltrate, so it has some potential. It's like a Songweaver that only works on Vespers. I think it's pretty balanced, but may see some play in Vesper deck. Having Vespers, it's a Vesper itself, I think this card is okay. Definitely not terrible. Alright, next one. 4 mana, Wailing Overdrive. Give a friendly minion on your opponent's start of the side the battlefield +5/+5. So this is basically an infiltrate card. It works pretty well with Spirit of the Wild. Like, let's say you have this is an 8 mana combo, so it has to be pretty good. But let's say you have a 2/3 that lives on your opponent's starting side of the battlefield, and you can attack their general. It's not actually that easy to happen, but that's fairly modest in what we're hoping to achieve with that combo. So you play it, goes to a 7 attack, you attack once, you reactivate 14. That's 14 damage. Is that enough? For 8 mana 2 card combo, it's definitely okay, but how good is this card otherwise? It's definitely not bad. I actually think this card it's decent in decks that you can really expect to get infiltrate a lot, which is really not a lot of decks. Mainly the stuff with like gravity wells and stuff like that to actually ensure you get infiltrate. And it's always risky to having these cards that really good around infiltrate. When you go second, it's a lot harder to get infiltrate, like a lot harder, especially with that gravity well. And this is a lot worse than Spirit of the Wild, even when you don't have infiltrate, because you can't even rush back into the other zone. I think it's still decent, though. I'm not expecting to see a ton of play. Maybe in some more aggressive decks, or maybe people will try it out with that Spirit of the Wild combo, because there's definitely some potential there. Alright, next one. White Asp as artifact. 4 mana, your general gains 3 attack. Whenever your general destroys a minion, summon a 3/3 Blazing Spine Wall on that space. It's definitely okay. It's basically one more than the 3 mana artifact that does also get 3 attack, and you get this effect. Is that effect worth more than 1 mana? Possibly in some more controlling decks, so we haven't actually seen Snowpiercer in non-aggressive decks. And in aggressive decks, you don't really... I think you want Snowpiercer just for the 1 less mana. If we see some more controlling ones that want an artifact to actually control the board, obviously this gets quite a decent amount better. And having walls is just around your general is actually quite good if you're kind of controlling deck, because then they have to give value to the wall. No one wants to give value to the 3/3 wall, so they want to run away with it, and then you have time with your general. So definitely some potential in more controlling decks, though in an aggressive build, I don't think this makes the cut over Snowpiercer. On to the next one. 5 mana 3/4 Holdra. Opening gambit, give a friendly Vesper minion celerity. What this does, it opens up some combos with stuff like Frostfire and then Vesper, celerity. I don't know if it's that consistent, but I mean, Snow Chasers live a decent amount of the time. Cloakers get a few hits in. I don't think stuff like Arctic Displacer combo with Holdra is going to be a good thing. It's just way too consistent. But if you're playing a bunch of Vespers, Frostfires anyway, why not stick a couple of these in and have a lot of burst damage with the deck? Definitely has some potential, but a 5 mana 3/4 is pretty bad. 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 5 not as hyped on this card as some other people, but it has some potential if you just want the combo potential and a bit of burst. Though maybe you just play Spirit of the Wild at that point. Alright, on to the next one. Frostiva, 5 mana 3/3 force field. That when this minion attacks or is attacked, summon a 3/3 Vesper Night Howler nearby. So the force field obviously makes this card decently. If it's just honest minion to minion combat, this card is pretty good. You summon a bunch of 3/3s, and often it will trade, but it's still a 3 health minion. Like, Blood Tier is a big card against this because you can Blood Tier like a cheap spell, clear this, which is really problematic. But a lot of the time it is going to give you another, at least 1 through 3, and that's not too bad. So this card is decent, but I'm not sold on it. Like, it doesn't trade well against Dancing Blades. Sure, you get a 3/3, but they get a 4/6, and you both spend 5 mana. So not the most amazing card. But you could see some play. If it's like a very honest meta, and by that I mean like lots of minions bumping into each other, getting value, then maybe this card is good. Alright, next one. Frostburn. 5 mana, deal 3 damage to all enemy minions. Vanar, the AoE-less faction, now has a pretty nice AoE. It's like an old Tempest, but instead of dealing damage to everything, costs 2 more, and only deals damage to enemy minions, which is pretty big. Maybe a meta call, but definitely want to run maybe 1 or 2 of regardless. I could see that happening for sure, but definitely good in aggressive metas. Can clean up the board if that Magmar starts playing a bunch of battle pets. This is obviously very good. It's definitely just good for Vanar to have that AoE option, and this is definitely a pretty solid card, so definitely expect this to see some play. Alright, Winter's Wake. Give all friendly wall minions +4/+4. Those minions can now move. I don't know how to evaluate this card. It's like a really strong finisher for a wall deck, I guess. So, if you're playing walls, a bunch of wall synergy, well, there's not really much wall synergy, but if you're playing just a bunch of walls, this is actually quite a scary finisher. It can make them really respect your walls. So maybe this is play, like a 2 of as a wall deck, but 8 mana is a lot. And how much damage? Okay, so like the 3/3 walls there's only 2 of them. It's kind of easy to play around. This is the stuff that normally gets ignored, like gravity walls and bone shield barriers that are quite good with this card, but how many do you really need for this card to be good? And I feel like you need to be able to hit face or get effective use out of at least 2 walls. If this card sees play, then it gets a lot worse. Which sounds a bit weird, but if people know this card is a threat, they'll start clearing the walls, and that's not that hard. But maybe you'll see some play. If you're going to play a wall deck, it's worth trying out at least. Alright guys, we're nearly there. I apologize, this has been a very long video. I'm tired. I've got to go soon as well. I'm trying to rush this out, so let's get through these last ones quickly. And then I can go to work, get home, and stream some Shim'zar. I'm so excited for that. It's going to be absolutely awesome. Alright, 1 mana, 3/1, Koi the Battle Pet, takes no damage from general. It's a 3/1, it's a Battle Pet, it's garbage. Okay, maybe it's not that simple, but it seems pretty bad. Sure, your general can't take it, so it actually does get traded, but like, it's so easy to control. Like, you can Blood Tier it, you can just put like a 2/4 into it. Maybe it's not bad. Maybe it's fine in an aggressive deck, actually. Maybe like aggressive Starhorn Battle Pet deck, I could see this in. But you're pushing it a little bit. You're pushing it. It dies to everything. It's only 1 mana card, but I think this is a Starhorn card in my mind. It's the kind of card Starhorn is. 2 mana, 3/3 Amu. It's just a battle pet. Obviously pretty bad, but it's just part of the battle pet card pool. It's a neutral. Can't expect much. Zor, 2 mana, 2/1. Put a random mech minion into action bar when it dies. Obviously worse than just having the mech piece for the most part. Mech decks care mainly about tempo, but it serves as an extra 3 mech pieces in mech decks. So expect this to see a decent amount of play in mech decks. Yeah, it's definitely okay, but very, very slow and bad tempo in the early game. Playing 2 mana and getting a 1 health minion that doesn't affect the board in any way doesn't feel great. Next one, 2 mana soul, battle pet, 1/1, activate a friendly battle pet as opening gambit. This card's probably pretty trash. Like, activating a friendly battle pet, I don't think that's a really good effect. I don't expect my battle pets to live. That's a 2 mana 1/1. It's pretty bad. We see Lyonar, another battle pet, 3 mana 5/4. What this card does do is actually give us a high roll for some of the battle pets. You get a lot of random battle pet in your hand effects, so it's okay with that. 5/4 is actually not too bad, but it's 4 health minion. It's going to get the worst possible trades. There's not a lot that really trades that into it, so I actually don't mind this one because people keep saying like, okay, battle pets are going to trade. Like, they're just like, I don't think it's also constructed black. Okay, I'll get that out of the way, but it's not that bad. It's really not bad, this one. Like, people keep saying, oh, yeah, battle pets are so bad because they'll get traded into by the worst possible thing. It's a 3 mana card. It's a 5/4. What is traded into this so nicely? Like, this card's not good. But it's not bad. It's a fine card. Like, it's a 5/4. What is trading into it so efficiently? Duelyst? Maybe? It's not that bad. Like, what do you expect a 3 mana card to do against Duelyst? I don't know. Don't underestimate the battle pets too much. Like, some of the overstated ones actually have some potential if there's nothing that actually trades well into them. Alright, next one. Ion. 3 mana 2/3 with range. Deals double damage to generals. It's like a 4/3 with range hitting the general, but doesn't seem that good. It's like a Widowmaker, but you get this really bad synergy with range and battle pets, just so you can do double damage to generals, and your opponent can just stop you from doing double damage to generals by putting a minion in the way. Like, I don't think it's very good. Next one, Hydrax. 3 mana 3/3. Whenever a friendly battle pet dies, you draw a card. I opened a few of these and I'm devastated. I don't like this card at all. Battle pets will probably die right before you can play this card because they're probably going to die at the start of your turn. That's what you need to expect, even if it won't always happen. I think that's the assumption. If you're playing battle pet decks, you need to make that assumption that they're very likely to die, and Hydrax doesn't work with that card. You need to already have it set up. There's potential, obviously drawing cards, replacing is always really good, but it's just way too slow. Golden Mantella, 3 mana 4/2, put a random battle pet into your action bar. It's nice to have one-sided draw. It's like similar to a Void Hunter, potentially better, but I don't think it's very good. Soboro, 3 mana 2/4, when this minion damages a neutral minion, destroy that minion. We already have a 3 mana 1/5 in Songhai that does, kills any minion. And that's easily no play, even in a faction with inner focus. Obviously, other factions can play this card, but I don't think they will want to. It's weak to Zenrui, which is always going to be a thing, unfortunately. And it's just not that good. Like, we've got an expansion that's going to add a bunch of new cards, so there's probably going to be even less neutral cards. Against Kara, sure, it can kill stuff for free, but like, it's going to trade back if it's a 4/5 like Healing Mystic anyway. And Kara can deal with a 2/4 very, very easily, so I don't think this is a very good card. Zukong, remind you of any League of Legends champion, guys, is a 3 mana 3/4. You control your battle pets. It's okay, but it doesn't curve well. That is slightly a problem. Though if you go, first you play this in a battle pet, turn 2, that's actually decent in a battle pet based deck. So probably we'll see some play. Once again, it comes back 3 mana 3/4. It doesn't necessarily need that good of an effect, and I think this one is actually decent if you're playing a lot of battle pets. But you're still playing a lot of battle pets in that situation. Is a battle pet deck going to be good enough that this card gets to shine? Well, we'll see, but I don't have high hopes. Next one, Nasha, 4 mana 3/3. Dying Wish, this minion deals 3 damage to all enemies around it. Because it's a Dying Wish, it's kind of inconsistent. It does have some synergy with Dying Wish effects, which we've definitely seen. Still not sold on it though. Sounds a bit worse than Holy Immolation. Definitely a gauntlet card. It's very easy, very, very easy to play around. Doesn't even hit the general, so like they just run away, ping it with a blood tear, and hit it with their general. What are you gonna do? Beastmaster, 5 mana 2/5 with Celerity and Frenzy. I saw a lot of hype when this card got revealed for in Songhai decks, but we already have Dagakiri. Sure, the Frenzy is good when you have Inner Focus and Saberspine Seal, but I can think of a lot of cards that are good when you play Inner Focus and Saberspine Seal, and that does not make them good cards, especially in the era of 1 draw Duelyst. So I don't think this card is very good. It's very weak to Zenrui. In a focus by itself, it's okay. It's a 4 damage, and I'd rather play Slither Mecha as well. Okay, on to the next one. Raw, we're nearly there, folks. We're nearly there. Thanks for sticking by. 5 mana, 3/7 Battle Pet. That when this minion takes damage, summon a random Battle Pet nearby. I actually quite like this card. I don't know if it's going to be good enough to see play in non-Battle Pet decks, but it's a 3/7. If they have to deal damage with it, honestly, when it's a 5-mana minion, how often are they killing this thing in one shot? So you're going to get like 2 Battle Pets for it, which is actually pretty good. So I think this card is pretty decent. Against Dancing Blades, you deal like 3 damage to it and you summon 2 Battle Pets. So it's actually not bad. It lines up pretty well against that. I actually kind of rate... I think we've learned from Land Fox that take damage effects are actually pretty good. Because they're kind of hard to stop. Whereas the ones that when they deal damage are a lot worse, because then spells and Dancing Blades and range works on it a lot better. Next one, 5 mana. The Calculator. What a great name. And it's a pretty cool sprite, this one, you gotta admit. 5 mana, 1/1 epic. Opening Gambit, gain the combined attack and health of all battle pets in your action bar. It's like good if you play it. You have to... Alright. It's probably better than High Hand in a deck with a bunch of battle pets. Probably. Which is not the most impressive thing to beat. If you're playing heaps of battle pets, go ahead, play this card. Obviously, you're never playing this in a deck without a ton of battle pets. Even then, it's so weak to the spell, it's a real risk, for sure. So, not the best card, and probably not enough to make battle pets. We haven't really seen enough reasons to want to play a bunch of battle pets, other than actually wanting to play the battle pets, which I don't know if people really want to do. Alright, that's enough on this one. Inquisitor Kron. Now, this is a card that I've seen a lot of hype around, and I have to kind of agree with most of the hype. It's a 5 mana 4/6 with Provoke, which it's not great, but it's okay. It has an immediate effect, and whenever you place a card, you summon a 2/2 person with a nearby random ability, which is actually pretty good. So, basically, I'm looking at this card as a 5 mana 4/6 Provoke that summons a 2/2 with a random nearby. So you notice I basically missed the part where it's where you replace the card, because I don't think this is happening multiple times. It's a Provoke, so you need to play it close. It's probably going to die. It's going to be the first thing your opponent deals with. But it's still pretty good. Like the ability, it's going to protect the prisoner a lot of the time. If you get multiple hits out of it, it's good. I don't think you played this in okay. If this card is as good as people think it is, you'll play it in a replace deck, correct? But it's not going to be a reason to play a replace deck. It's not going to make a replace deck suddenly good just because of this. This is just a solid card that works with the replace mechanic anyway. And then 6 mana, Silverbeak 6/9. This is just a gauntlet card. Probably a little bit better than the Golem. Maybe is the 1 health better, but yeah, it's just a gauntlet card. Alright guys, that was an absolute marathon. Gone well over an hour. It's been exhausting. I've talked a ton. I'm sure you're going to look back in a couple of months and laugh at most of the things I've said in this video. I like to think that we've come okay, we've evaluated, and I tried to kind of give the best case, the worst case a little bit. So kind of cover the bases a bit. Let us know what you think of the cards, if there's any I'm really underrating, any I'm really overrating. But we'll see. The meta is going to shake up so much. It's very hard to evaluate these cards because we don't know what the meta is going to be versing. Like I could insert these cards into today's meta, and a lot of them are going to be bad because we're a very fast-paced game at the moment. Lots of these things, and minions don't stick. But if the meta changes, so there's lots of it's slower, lots of minions sticking, lots of minions on the board. A lot of these cards get a lot better. So we'll see how the meta goes. If you want to subscribe, make sure to subscribe. We just hit over 1,000 subs, so extremely excited about that. And you can also find me at twitch.tv/UniproTV. As I said before in the video, I think I said in the video, I'm going to be streaming very, very soon. Probably about the time this video is published, or maybe I didn't get to publish it in the time, but I'm streaming like hopefully every day, especially in the weekdays. So come check it out. That's everything I need to say. I've talked for a long time. I need to stop talking. Alright guys, I'll see you later. And best of luck with Shim'zar.